Today's tested board, the Kona Nominous. Kona is initially known from the windsurfing area, but now also represented in the raceboard area. It is not indicated as raceboard, we will soon give the reasons why. The board contains 239 liters and a retail price of €2,700. We tested the board size 14x23. We categorize the Nominous as flat water board.
The board is laminated with carbon fiber and covered with a full gloss paint. All in all, the first impression of processing is very good. Kona is not an unknown brand, originated in Scandinavia and producing long-since water sports equipment and stand-up paddle boards in high-quality technology. The tested board has an average punctual resistance to pressure. The board is equipped with an automatic valve. Differences in temperature or pressure caused by the volume of the board can be balanced automatically by the valve, through letting air streaming in or out, similar to the pressure balance of your rears. Without an automatic or manual valve, such a board could be damaged while being transported during a flight with no pressure balance. The valve of this board do not has to be adjusted, it is working automatically, so you do not have to stress about it. In the front of the board we have different leash plugs to fix a net to transport things. The philosophy and aim of Kona is not to produce the best race board, but to create stability, simple to use with a maximum of performance. During the following test we will see the resulting consequences compared to other race board candidates. Now we focus on the width of standing. With a board size of 23, the width of standing is 48 centimeters. We have a dropped deck with a thickness of 20 centimeters at the maximum point, dropping down to a minimum thickness of 9 centimeters around the area of standing, so we are close to the surface of water. We also have a handle which is fixed in a way that makes it possible for us to easily carry the board to the beach without an extra effort to stabilize the nose or back of the board. We also have drain holes which are not perfectly processed and designed quite complicated. Manual corrections can be seen, but they won't have an effect on the function. The outside is smooth and neated, just the inside does not look as chic/snazzy/stylish compared to starboard. The continuous EVA deck does not have a tail kit. At the end there is just the painted board. So you first have to better visually control the best standing position of your feet and maneuvers to prevent slipping down. The whole processing is very neat and the EVA is set in the dropped board, reducing the possibility of crinkling and peeling off because of being active with the feet while moving on the board. The bottom is decorated with some style elements like visible carbon. Here we can also see very small pinholes which can be produced during the process of laminating. That's nothing grave but a small impairment of quality compared to other producers. Those pinholes have no effect on stability, but are a quality feature of the processing of composite. The bottom line at the nose is flat to support the glide and shows a slim pointing nose with an equally curved edge at the outline and ending with medium-sized squash tail moving on to a lightly concave shape which is getting deeper at the end. The concave has an average size and the rail is rounded towards the underwater ship going on into a bevel construction, so we can say that the rails are lightly sloped down. The fin is fitted to a long US fin box. Every individual has to find its optimal position of the fin. Fitting the fin more at the front results in a bigger rotational freedom, installing it more at the end of the box leads to more directional stability.
The first impression of standing on the board is very shaky and unstable. We name this primary stability. The Nominous shows a very vivid reaction. But while being active on the board and moving on, we can feel resistance and it is quite difficult to let the board to tip over. We call this secondary stability. Focusing on the directional stability, no matter if you are an average paddler or an expert, every paddle stroke is happening in front of the standing position in the rounded area of the board and always leading to a reaction of the board. It is turning automatically and I have to counter with the opposite to keep the direction. Another possible method is to use an appropriate paddle technique for balancing. The Nominous reacts exactly to the technique which is used by the paddler. Light-weighted paddler like this characteristic of the board, they have a pleasant sensation of playing without having to use a lot of effort to go where they want to. The ambitious racer will notice that balancing every stroke to drive straight on leads to agitation while paddling. Focusing on the maneuverability, we can notice quite pleasant reactions of the board. It is easy to control without a lot of effort. Because of the hull shape, the board reacts immediately and moves equally with every single paddle stroke. Therefore turns are very easy. While changing the center of gravity, for example during a pivot turn and bringing the center of gravity to the back of the board, the squared back helps to maintain stability. The stability does not decrease and the turning characteristics are still very good. The acceleration on the first meters is outstanding. Every paddle stroke is directly converted to propulsion. You feel easily taken into a race modus. On a short sprint distance, a maximum speed of 15 km/h was achieved. But this high speed could not be maintained as easily as with other boards on this short distance. Increasing the frequency of strokes to get to the final speed, you can notice quite a big agility, and it is getting difficult to use the whole pressure onto the paddle because of the hull shape. Light-weighted paddlers will not notice those characteristics that strong. They cannot produce strong impulses of force with their paddle, and the board shows a calmer behavior and the speed is more regular. Those results cannot be generated by heavier paddlers. This would lead to a build-up of the board. Same for the running smoothness. Light-weighted paddler cannot generate strong forces onto the board. It reacts calmer and goes perfectly through the water with the, from the paddler's perspective, optically very thin nose. Heavier paddlers lead the board to dive into the water while moving back and forwards, which leads to build up and a decrease in running smoothness. Focusing on the controllability, we can find the same differences between light and heavy-weighted paddlers. The board is easier to control and moves regularly for the light-weighted paddler because their impulses are not that quickly transformed into movement. The heavier paddler generates a more powerful stroke with a force peak and more movement in the board, which has to be balanced with an additional paddle stroke, which therefore minimizes the velocity. In this case, the paddle stroke is not ideal in its carrying out. We can conclude that sprinting is quite difficult for the heavier paddler, but touring will work well for them because they just need a constant paddle stroke and not to increase in speed. Also, the training of technical skills is working well for them because they can notice exactly and immediately what they are doing right or wrong. So we recommend the board for paddler with a weight maximum of 80 kilograms, so my weight would be the upper limit. Except for wanting to focus on technical training. Looking at light-weighted persons, we had a test subject with 50 kilograms. We can see that they have a lot of fun with the board and they reported a regular paddle feeling. We also differentiate between the average paddler and those with expert skills who want to improve their technique and control exactly their paddle stroke.
Panasonic.